considered to be probably the best tier list out at this point in time for multiple reasons. One, it's the most in-depth that I've seen. Two, it gives the most gradings to multiple things. It just doesn't have characters categorized. Three, it has notes, and then it has a bunch of other stuff. As you see it coming up on the screen right now, guys, we have the regular tier list, which is categorized through many things. Like we got main DPS, secondary DPS, reaction, support ability, their ability in the abyss as well, and then their overall grade. And then also, besides just this tier list, which again has a great amount of depth to it, there's this team building help. There's an abyss guide. There's a DPS sim. And then there also is the changelog and the comps. I haven't looked at the comps exactly too much yet. But I have looked at the changelog and a good amount of the other stuff. And guys, there is some really good stuff for you to look at, especially if you are just starting out Genshin Impact, which a lot of people are since the game just came out. But as you guys see right here with this changelog, since the 18th of September when the betas came out, they have been doing a lot of updating to this tier list and this little website right here, this Google document. So be sure to check it out. I will have it linked down below in the description. Show them some love on this tier list if there is any way possible to. If anybody knows who made this tier list, be sure to let me know on Twitter or something like that so I can give these guys a shout out, because whoever put this together definitely deserves it, because this again to me is the most accurate, most in-depth, and just best tier list that I've seen. Now getting into the actual tier list part of it though, we have categories Jesus, for different types of damage. Main DPS is the unit who will fill the space in your rotations with auto attacks or spammable skills. Secondary DPS are the units who are there for their skills but cannot deal damage with low use time. Typically the same element as the main DPS to share res down effects and help generate more energy. Anemo units are not ranked here since they are much more suited for support. Now we have reaction DPS as well, units who are there to help boost team DPS by creating reactions. Units with low use time that can help create lots of reactions will be ranked higher. Electro, Pyro, Hydro units are ranked higher since their reactions are the best for DPS. Now support are units who are basically for support, like in terms of healing, buffing, things like that. And then the abyss grade is just how useful they are in the abyss, and it is based off of the late game abyss floors 9 through 12, which I honestly really like, because not only is it showing that a unit can be good right now, but it's also letting you know whether or not it'll be viable in the future as well. So taking a look at this tier list, guys, as you see, the overall grades are over here on the right, and they seem to be in order from grade at the very least. Now I don't know if like Venti being at the top of the S tier list means they have him as the best character in the game, or if they're just all in S tier randomly. But starting out with Venti, guys, he is a S class secondary DPS and an S plus support DPS, S in the abyss and S overall. They have, in terms of the notes, gold standard for support, has high, very high ratios on top of being Anemo. Once you get the Anemo set, he's irreplaceable. And then Fizzle, 4-star, she is an S in terms of secondary and S in terms of reaction DPS, which makes 100% sense because she is an absolute monster in terms of her damage with reactions and things like that. But then they have her as an A+ in the abyss and an S overall, and it says can basically fit into any team and deal a lot of damage. Best 4-star unit in the game and best support DPS, which I honestly do agree with, considering the fact that she is just an absolute monster with Oz. Like, Oz is insane, especially when you get the constellation up. Oz is literally out of this world. So I definitely agree with Fizzle being at the top of this tier list, because she again is absolutely amazing in my opinion. Now next up we got Diluc, being a S class overall, but an S in main DPS and an S in the abyss as well. And it really shouldn't be too hard to wonder why, but it does say best main DPS for a Pyro, and Pyro units are the best for final abyss floors, synergizes well with all other good units, and deals ton of damage. So again, if you've used Diluc or seen gameplay on him, it's really not that hard to figure out why. The man does absolutely insane damage. So again, it definitely makes sense for him to be up at the top and be the best main DPS for Pyro in the game at this point. Now moving on, we're into the A+ category now, and it starts out with Mona. They have her as an A for reaction, an A+ for support, an S in the abyss, and an A+ overall. And it says draws aggro and helps to create reactions with her E. By the way, guys, you will see E and Q used throughout this video, and that's basically for the keyboard inputs. I believe Q is like the regular super attack, and then the E is your ultimate. but I don't know for sure. Again, I actually might have it wrong. I think E is the regular super and the Q is your ultimate. But it does say draws aggro and helps to create reactions with her E. Works best as a supporter in my opinion. Buffs team DPS with Q, and the uptime isn't that bad. But Q buff is additive, not multiplicative. Now moving on, we have Gigi, or Chi-Chi, however you want to say it. She is a C in terms of secondary DPS, B in terms of reaction, but an S in terms of support, and an S in terms of the Abyss. A+ overall, and it says a good cryo unit for a cryo or electro Abyss team. Having her on your team makes you close to unkillable, but will probably cut your DPS by a bit. So I'm assuming she's just an absolutely amazing healer. I haven't gotten her or used her myself. I haven't used all the characters on this list because I didn't participate in the betas like I said earlier. So again, this list has definitely helped me out a lot, and that's why we're going over it for you guys so you guys can see it, and I hope that this list helps you guys out as well. But moving on, we do have Bennett on the list, another character I haven't used yet up until this point. And in terms of main DPS, A+, support is an A, and then the Abyss is an S, and A+ in the overall grade as well. And it says, considering how useful he is in the Abyss both as support and as a carry, I think it makes sense for Bennett to be A+. If you can stay in his Q, his DPS is actually as high as main DPS for Duluth, Constellation 0 versus Constellation 0. So honestly, Bennett kind of sounds pretty insane. I would definitely like to get him. Moving on though, we got King. Sorry if I do say her name wrong, or any of these names wrong for that matter. But she has an A in terms of main DPS, A+ in the Abyss, A+ overall, and says that she has long animation times, especially on her Q. Worse than Fizzle as a support DPS, but outclasses Razor as main DPS on Electro teams, and her mobility is very good. Now we have Xiangling next up on this list, being an A in main DPS, A+ in secondary, and A in reaction. Like, she can just do damage in all categories, which is honestly very, very good, obviously. And then as an Abyss character, they have her as an A+ and A+ overall. And it says very high ratios and works well as a support for most element. Can also be used as a main DPS, but this is not Jiang's strong suit. So moving on now, guys, we are finally in the A category. And the first character in the A category is Jean. She's a B in terms of secondary DPS, but an A in terms of support for her healing abilities. A+ in the Abyss, and A overall. From what I've seen, for the most part, a character that can heal will at the very least get like an A+ or something like that within the Abyss, because healing is absolutely major if you don't have any. But continuing on with Jean, guys, like I said, she is an A overall, and it says she doesn't have extra res down effects, and her Q doesn't really deal too much damage. Has both healing and Anemo support in the same unit, however, making her very efficient for the Abyss. So Razor, moving on, guys, is an A in terms of main DPS. They don't have them categorized really in any other regard. But an A+ in the Abyss and an A overall. And it says Razor's DPS is very high, but he limits your ability to swap into other units. This ends up lowering your overall DPS, and is why he's rated lower than King despite being able to deal more damage than her. And honestly, that makes perfect sense to me, because as some of you guys may have seen in this game, switching is a big part in the game, and being able to constantly switch out different characters, use their moves, all things like that, is going to get you the most possible damage for the most part in a lot of situations. So the fact that Razor, he must have some slow animations or something along those lines, to where he is not the easiest and best character to switch out like that. But moving on, next up we have Chong Yun. His main DPS is an A, and then he's not categorized all the way over to the Abyss, where he is an A also, and then an A overall. Man is just an A character all around. And it says best main DPS for Cryo. Since he has Cryo autos with E, unfortunately that's all he can really do. Outclassed by Kaia for Cryo support. Using him to convert autos for your main DPS is usually not a good idea, since you'll split your stats. Moving on, next up we have Barbara, guys, another healer. She's a C in terms of reaction DPS, A in terms of support, and A+ in the Abyss. Like I said, pretty much any healer gets an A+ from what I've seen in terms of the Abyss, just because that healing factor can be absolutely major, especially, like I said, if you don't have one. But she's an A overall as well, and it says basically a worse version of Gigi. Still, healers are important for Abyss, especially for 10. So if you don't have one, prioritize Barbara. And for the most part, guys, most of you should have gotten your free Barbara at rank 20, at Venture rank 20. You get a free one before the first free update. So if you haven't gotten that done, try and get to rank 20, because the first update, I do believe 1.1, is kind of right around the corner. So if you haven't gotten Barbara to this point, you definitely want to do so, because it is a free 4-star and a really, really good healer as well, especially if you don't have one at this point. But moving on, guys, next up we have Klee. Kaia is a unit that a lot of people are excited for, and it makes sense because from what I've seen, she does massive damage. But this tier list did clear up some stuff regarding her as a character and how she can be good in the early stages or maybe in the main story and things like that, but maybe not the best Abyss character, as you guys will see in a second. But in terms of main DPS, they have her as a B in the Abyss, even though they have her as an A+. Wait till we get to the notes. And overall, she is an A. But now getting on to the notes. On one hand, she has insane burst, being able to use E twice at the start of a fight. On the other hand, Q forces her to stay in, and this usually reduces your DPS, and unfortunately the end game right now is not short fights, so she isn't too effective. So it seems like to me like Kaia is like a glass cannon character that is really good probably in short quick fights, but not one that you would want to keep in for a while. And then the fact that her Q, I guess, seems to keep her in and prevents the switching part brings her down a bit as well. But next up we have the Traveler, the MC, the Anemo version though, and he is an A rank overall, A in terms of secondary DPS and A in terms of support, but only a B in the Abyss. It says pretty much perfect on any free-to-play team as Anemo support. Works better than Sucrose since MC has way lower CDs and gets free Constellation 6. Q can be very annoying and reduces DPS though since it moves enemies away. Next up though we have Jing Q. We're in the B category now, guys, but he or she is a B in terms of secondary DPS, B in reaction DPS, B in support, A in the Abyss, which I find kind of weird considering he's a B all around, and then B overall. But it says on paper he seems OP, but realistically his Q won't have much uptime if you're swapping between characters, using their abilities and not autoing. Can be flexed on most teams for hydro reactions. Okay, kind of sounds interesting, like a character that's good at first sight. Next up though on the list we have the Geo MC, and he is a B in terms of secondary DPS and then B in the Abyss and B overall. And it says gives the party 10% crit and deals decent damage. The buff is tied to being in the area created though, and his E can be annoying. Anemo MC seems more useful for a lot of situations, which I do agree with. Really, the Geo MC is only good for exploration. Like if you're exploring and trying to get to higher places and climb mountains and things like that, the Geo CAC or MC I should say definitely comes in handy. But moving on, guys, we have Kaia next up on the list. He is a B in terms of secondary DPS, C in terms of reaction, and then B in terms of support, and then a B overall. It says honestly Kaia isn't bad as bad as people make him out to be. He can fit in many comps to create reactions since his Q has multiple procs. At higher constellation his Q gets a lot better, does over twice as much damage. Damn, that's kind of good. But moving on, we have Bidu. I don't know how to say that name at all. But this character is a B in main DPS, B in secondary, B in reaction, A in the Abyss, and B overall. It says in the same boat as Razor, having split damage, except her normal attack DPS is much lower. Her Q is actually pretty good, but realistically you'll be swapping and using burst skills too much to make it worth. Okay. Again, another character I haven't seen or used, so that kind of sounds a bit interesting. And then next up we have Ning Wang. Again, if I botch some of these names, do not kill me in the comments. But she's a B in terms of main DPS, secondary DPS is a C, support is a C, and then the Abyss is a C, one of the lower rankings we've seen for the Abyss overall. But overall, she is a B. Says needs a second Geo to work well for energy regeneration. Geo MC is best for this, has very high base damage, but suffers late on without any sources of Geo res. Then next is Noel, another Geo user. She's a C in terms of main DPS, and then B in support and B in the Abyss. C overall, the first C, actually, yeah, the first C character on the list, guys. And it says as a main DPS she's mostly outclassed by Ning Wang until you reach higher talent levels or unlock her last constellation for more defense over attack. Also, her E does not generate particles, making it hard to use her burst. And then next on the list, guys, is Lisa. Lisa is one of the characters you get for free. She is a C in secondary DPS, D in reaction, B in the Abyss, and C overall. In my opinion, she's worse than Kaia. Her long CDs and cast time aren't justified by how much damage her E does or how much setup it needs. Her Q could be good if it didn't knock things out of it, easily outclassed by any other Electro. Damn, kind of just shitting on her. Next is Sucrose though. Sucrose doesn't get any kind of ranking besides support, which she's a B in, but then C overall. She says it says your second Anemo support till you get Venti or Jean. Really long CDs and basically impossible to use her burst if she's your only Anemo. And then finally, guys, we have Amber. Amber is a D rank in terms of secondary DPS, and then C in the Abyss and D overall. And it says only real use is a Pyro unit for Abyss if you're missing Diluc/Bennett. Very low ratios and low DPS in general. Now there also is Zhao on the list. He is not really classified at all. They have him as a $S, and it says not sure if he's been reworked. Either way, he'll most likely be a top tier Anemo main DPS. Not sure how it'll work with res down effects since Viridescent and Venerer can't reduce Anemo res. So again, guys, this is the tier list that they have put together for us. We just went over it in full, but if you want to check it out for yourself, be sure to do so. It will be linked down below in the description. And again, if anybody knows who put this together, let me know, because this tier list was absolutely amazing. Like I said, let me know your thoughts on it, if you'll be using it. And not only using it for the tier list, but for other things as well. With your tier team building help, you have early to mid game. Yeah, it explains the game mechanics, explains late game. Your Abyss guide, your DPS sim, the change, well, I mean not the change log, the comps. The change log is obviously just to check what has changed, but the comps in terms of team competition, things like that, this is something that I'll definitely be looking at, just due to the simple fact that I haven't. Alright, sorry about that. As you guys kind of heard, my dog was very excited to go outside, as my girl just called him. But like I was saying, man, the comps, I haven't looked into much, but just looking at it, basically, it does seem like it is absolutely amazing. Like, it puts together a bunch of different possible teams for you and things like that. So again, definitely want to take a look at this Google document for yourself, not only for the tier list, but for everything else that I talked about within this video as well. And again, man, shout out to whoever made this, because it is definitely absolutely amazing. But let me know your thoughts on this tier list down below in the comments. And as always, man, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, hope you have a good day. Peace, y'all.